Welcome to CMMS Radio, a podcast and general resource for all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, from selection to implementation to help you make better choices and have a successful CMMS journey. We'll bring in experts along the way to help us learn more about CMMS, facilities operations, and much more. If you need help with the CMMS project, send a message at CMMSradio.com using the What's on Your Mind link. Suggest a topic, share your CMMS story, or ask questions. All right, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We are joined today by Chris Palumbo. He's Director of Business Development at Llumin. Llumin's CMMS Plus is a specialized CMMS platform that goes beyond your typical CMMS functionality to include predictive maintenance-centric functionality and much more. Chris, welcome to CMMS Radio. Thanks for joining today.
Greg, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. One of the first things I want to talk about today is your background. What is your background and how did it bring you into the CMMS world?
Yeah. So I've spent 13 plus years affiliated or selling into or being part of in the manufacturing world, right? Selling large pieces of manufacturing equipment, consumables that went on that equipment. And I've seen it from all ends, whether it's, selling into the food and beverage, pharmaceutical, gas and oil, straight building supplies. I've seen it all across the board. So I've spent a lot of time within that, I'd say, vertical, that industry. I joined Llumin 2 years ago because they were looking to obviously expand our fingerprint within the manufacturing industry. And they were looking for someone who has experience working with plant managers, maintenance managers, operations directors, selling into that industry, and really who understands the needs of that industry. And let's face it, the needs of within food and beverage is a little different than the needs in gas and oil. So, selling into each one of those verticals, I learned a lot over the last 13 plus years. I hate to say that out loud, how many years it's been. But, and so that's how, Llumin approached me, and I loved it because in all ways, whether you're trying to sell equipment that's going to, help a manufacturer speed up production, or you're selling software that's going to help keep that equipment going, you're working with the manufacturer and trying to help them achieve their goals. So I loved what Llumin was trying to achieve and wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I think it's smart when an organization providing solutions, they know that there's a specific problem that they might solve, but bringing people in that really understand the boots on the ground, the frontline workforce, the deskless workforce, these different ways we describe the people that are really doing the work, using the systems. It's a real advantage for them to work with you because you understand what they're going through and you understand it in multiple environments because of your background. So that was part of the reason I asked that question. It makes a lot of sense for people to have confidence when they're dealing with someone that understands what they're talking about. If somebody's working on this type of equipment, you're going to go, yeah, I know what that is. And that is a really, really big help. Now, with your experience thus far over these, well over a decade, these years, what do you see as the biggest challenge for folks looking for their very first CMMS platform?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And it's a question that I generally bring up on one of my first questions when I talk to a prospect. And it's really them understanding what they want to achieve, right? Not everybody wants to get the same out of a CMMS program. Some are looking to increase throughput. Some want increased visibility. Some want inventory management to be a function that they really want to focus on. So really, what I think is really important in the very first conversation for anybody looking for a CMMS program is to have that internal dialogue with them and their team, the boots on the ground, and say what's not working for us and what do we want to achieve by getting this CMS program. And from there they can take it and say, okay, we have a few avenues now to look at, because there's just so much out there, right? There's so many options out there within the CMMS industry. You want to figure out what's best for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of what you just brought up with the landscape out there, when somebody's looking for a CMMS for the first time or they're looking to replace a CMMS, I'm hearing of late that there are well over 400, if not close to 500 systems in the categorization of computerized maintenance management software. And that blows my mind. It's bonkers. How the hell is somebody going to figure that out
How
when they're going out?
crazy is that? Too many options, right? Like you're not going to process all those options, and that proves the point where you really do need to know what you want, what you need to achieve before even getting into this conversation, or else you're just going to have all these different conversations with all these different options out there, and it's not going to mean anything. Wow,
Absolutely.
400.
Yeah. Yeah. It used to be, I was hearing 300 plus, and then more recently, I think the number was around 474 or something like that, where it's just mind boggling to me, having been in the industry myself. You've got a lot of experience with it. I talk to other people that have been, in it anywhere from 10 years to maybe upwards of 40. And it's insane. Legacy systems still exist out there that are, they're doing what they do, but
They're
they're
not
way
being
behind.
maintained. They're not being updated. They're not training new people on some of those legacy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a crazy wild west out there. But that's
Yeah.
what that's why I love this CMS radio. That's why I love what you're doing, honestly, making this process a little easier, right? For people who are coming into it. Maybe they are replacing, or maybe they haven't had this program before. But giving them a checklist to look at of what they need to achieve in a program, giving them ideas of, there are some differences out there between them. There's a lot of similarities, but there are some differences between the options out there. And that's really what I attracted to me to CMS radio. So nice job with that.
Thank you for that. And I think about it a lot, trying to figure out how to bridge that gap. How do I help people figure out what they're going to do on their journey, their very specific journey? And how do I also bring in vendors, providers, other types of experts to round out that expertise? So one of the things you already said today that I think is it's important for people to know is do your internal research, get the right stakeholders involved, and really I much prefer a bottom up approach. Although it might be a top down directive, the bottom up approach is important because the people doing the work, using the platform, they're the ones that know what they really need and want and what they will adopt.
Absolutely. Well,
So,
and they know the struggles more than anybody too. Right? They know where their hours are being wasted, and where they can see that improvement. Even
absolutely.
if it is a top and bottom, you still have to have that conversation with everybody in between, because
That's
everybody
right.
has to be aligned on a software program.
For sure. Now, one of the questions I had here was in that process, they're doing those internal dialogues, having those stakeholder meetings, they're starting to figure that out. Should they start gathering data even before they've engaged any potential vendors? Are there any certain data sets that you think are important for them to have available?
I'm surprised when I ask people, who say we really want to start monitoring our downtime. And I said, okay, what was your downtime? And I'll give a period. And they don't know. Now, well, maybe it's because they don't have it, a system in place to know it, which I understand. Or maybe they have a CMS software, they just don't know how to utilize what the downtime is. But I'm given these metrics that they want to measure. And I'd say the majority of the time, they don't have a benchmark to go against it. So what I generally say is, let's work together and try to find what it is, and set a benchmark so we can show you a true ROI. I don't want to just give them a number and say we're going to lower your downtime by this if we don't really know what it is. And on the flip
Right.
side, I've had conversations where someone will say we want to lower our downtime, and we've had a conversation, and this is what we need to have, or this is the MTTR number that we want to achieve, and that's fantastic because then we can get into a very granular approach of how are we going to help them as a company help them achieve the number that they want. So both ways are great because we're really partnering with them and helping them figure out what they need to achieve.
Right, right. And it's interesting what you brought up when there's a specific KPI or metric that they're going after. They know that there's a deficiency, bottlenecks, and things like that, but they don't have the data to actually articulate it yet. So, getting a solution is going to put them in a position to further articulate that. And one of the things I saw over the years was one of my first questions when working with people to help figure out what they really need, because it might not be the solution I'm offering, but I want to understand what they're dealing with. I would ask, well, how many assets do you have? It was extremely common that they did not have that answer. And what that would typically tell me is they just don't have full visibility to their operation. So that I would see as a business case for them, a business opportunity to get that immediate improvement, because that's part of a typical CMMS deployment. And same goes for ERP. So this leads me to my next question that's essentially asset centric, it's equipment centric. I want to talk about preventive versus predictive maintenance. And I know that's something that you're really passionate about. So, what are they and how are they different?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I am passionate about it because it truly does help someone who's choosing the CMS program to understand the difference between the two, right? And just from a very high level, what is preventive maintenance? It's a program that is routinely performed, on physical assets, really to reduce the chances of equipment failure and unplanned machine downtime. Right, that can be really costly to maintenance teams and facility managers. Now, different metrics can be used for preventive maintenance, such as time or usage. Right, we're gonna every 50 hours we're gonna run some type of PM on this piece of equipment, or if it's used, you know, every other month, we're going to do it, every 6 months, a PM on this piece of asset. And that can, you're trying to, catch something before it happens. You're trying to maintain an asset, but that can be really expensive, and that can lead to, either uh, over maintenance or under maintenance, right? And it doesn't give you the data that's really needed to, keep your assets running. So then there's predictive maintenance, and I'll say predictive maintenance is, excuse me, is designed to schedule corrective maintenance actions, before a failure occurs. So, with the ability to integrate into technology and sensors, a predictive maintenance strategy allows manufacturers and plant managers to monitor assets and repair replacements before an asset fails. So it's giving them data, giving them the ability to solve a problem before something actually happens. Now, where Llumin comes in and why we call ourselves Llumin CMMS Plus is, we have the ability to integrate with, we go one step further. We have the ability to integrate with business rules and policies with real-time machine and operational data, which then triggers intelligent, predictive remediation to happen. So we're allowing our customers to create these triggers that send warnings to them, let's just say, of abnormalities happening within their assets. And that really allows them to stay on top of everything. And that is why our customers are seeing an increase in throughput, a decrease in downtime. It's because they are preventing those issues from happening before those issues even become an issue, right? It's giving them real-time data and allowing them to base their maintenance strategy and their maintenance schedule on issues that they see happening in the future. And you can use
Absolutely.
any type of metrics you want on that, whether it's pressure, whether it's time, whether it's temperature. you have a sensor that's measuring something on an asset, we can integrate it with it, and we can give you that data. And that's really the difference between preventive and predictive.
And I was thinking about how that's absolutely critical to getting into this kind of state or future state of continual process improvement. And it really comes down to data driven decision making. You need good data, you need lots of data, and it all speaks to this resurgence of, or this new, more modern day digital transformation process that organizations are trying to go through. And they're also starting to look at maintenance operations in a different way rather than looking at it purely from a cost perspective. Organizations are starting to see through this kind of data and these kind of outcomes that other people are getting. They're starting to see that it's not about the spend, it's about the gain as a result of having that implemented properly. Do you have any CMMS horror stories, without calling out any products or anything like that, but have you ever heard of any kind of horror stories out there where someone had a CMMS and then it went awry, or they spent some huge amount of money and never did anything with it? Any of those come to mind without naming companies?
Without naming companies or anything like that, I will say it was almost a year ago. You know, I had a customer, a prospect, reach out to me and say we just started about 6 months ago with the CMS program that they had chosen, and we were never I'd never spoken to them prior to this, and they chose this company and they started the implementation and the integration and the getting all the assets set up and trying to get the training going on and it was a multi-plant location. And what ended up happening was uh, the whole implementation process was from what I'm told, horrendous. The company was not doing the implementation themselves. The CMS company wasn't doing the implementation themselves, so that was causing issues. It was taking longer than anticipated, and they had spent a lot of money on not only the software but the implementation, right? And if I buy something and I want to know how to use it, right? I want to know how the best practices. If I'm buying like a TV, I want to immediately know how to program my TV, how to get the best out of it, right? I can only imagine spending so much money and not really being able to use it to its fullest capabilities because you haven't been trained on it yet. So I guess the process got so bad that they said we can't go forward with this. We're not getting what we need just from the training. And they said, "What can we do?" And we ended up going through the whole program through Llumin CMMS Plus, and the software was good. It was the software was exactly what they needed. But when I got to the implementation process and showed them our step by step, that's what really kind of said, "Okay, this is what we need. We need a part." Um, and so we ended up working with them and signing them, but that was really bad just because of the time and the money that was they had already spent to have nothing done. um yeah, I felt for them.
Yeah, it's and I've seen similar things. We've probably seen a lot of other things that um, just are kind of shocking, and it almost always comes down to a disconnect that wasn't recognized on either side of that relationship establishment, and people kept going. So that can happen, and sometimes we find companies they're really trying to do their best, but maybe they're leaning on a third party integration partner that has to then learn some of the things. They're not quite up to speed like the vendor would be, and that leaves a disconnect. The clients that are deploying these systems, they know what they do, but they might not quite see the vision on how they're going to, I like to call it, web enable that process. It's kind of an old term, but the web enablement of what we already do
Web
is what we
enablement.
really do.
Wait, say
Yeah,
that term again.
web enablement. So
Web enablement. Okay.
Yeah, so the way web enablement worked for me over the years, and I've leaned on it pretty hard because I just love the concept, is we're out here, we're on the plant floor, and we maintain machines, we keep them up and running, we're pushing throughput. We're in a facilities environment, we know how to walk the facility, find problems, this, that, and the other thing, and we're getting stuff done. Then we've got a service provider that deploys people at night, maybe through their operations teams. They're going to send a specialty crew out to do comprehensive floor scrub and recoat of a 30,000 square foot specialized warehouse facility, whatever it might be. And now we want to take that whole process, and how do we web enable that? In other words, how do we digitize it? How do we make it so that people can walk around with it in their hand and get that same stuff done, but get it done a little bit better? Not that they're not doing great work, but now they're going to catch a couple minutes here, a couple hours there. They're going to head off problems. And then on top of all of that, the web enablement of the collaboration between them, the service providers of any kind, and their clientele that they service, if they can be connected, now we're really getting massive improvement on the efficiency of what we do. That's what web enablement is all about. Yeah. But it's an older term, like when it comes to industry, because it was probably more of an early 2000s term that was thrown around, the web enablement of just about everything. We're in a whole new world now because, obviously, if you start measuring uh like technical changes in the technological space, and you look at 20-year gaps, I mean, in this 20 years we've seen it's
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 crazy.
off the charts.
Yeah. You
So,
mentioned something there that is one of my favorite conversations that I have with people, and that's when we're going through a demo and we're showing them how a certain function of our software is going to get them minutes, if not hours, back in their day, right, or their
mm,
week, and simplify a process. The expression that they get on their face, man, when if that's my favorite part of a demo is when it hits them square in the face and they're like, oh, this is going to change my day. This is going to change my week. I'm going to be able to get back to doing what they're paying me to do, not running around doing Excel spreadsheets, not running around trying to find inventory. And I love that. I absolutely love that part of the conversation.
I think in a lot of ways it's why we do what we do, and it would probably be the same if we were selling cups of coffee, because we want to see that turn, that I talk about, the elusive win-win, and how I think it's a critical component of of how I operate and move through the world, because you're not only showing them what's going to solve their problem, but you have the confidence to know that once you get beyond the implementation, it's actually going to do that, and that feels really good. And
Feels really
everybody's
good.
out here, we're all trying to make money, and it's nice when you make that money in a way that your customers, let's face it, if we didn't have our customers, we wouldn't be in business.
I
So
totally agree.
it has
It's a
to
great
be.
feeling. It's a great benefit of doing what we do. I mean, when
Yeah.
I got into sales, like I said, 13 plus years ago, I didn't even realize how much I liked solving problems and working with people to solve their problem until I started doing it. And that is the main factor why I personally have stayed in the sales game, because I love working with people to find out, okay, this is your issue. Let's see if we can solve it for you. And when you do, in those relationships you build over the years, and the stories you get to have of working with some of these incredible companies throughout the country, solving problems for them, it's pretty cool feeling. And yes, you're making money, but you feel good about yourself having this type of relationship with these customers. And really,
Yeah.
CMS gets me in that relationship more than any other equipment I've sold in the manufacturing, because you really do have a full fingerprint on everything that's happening within those plants, and
Yes,
those conversations are pretty cool.
I think so. And the stories that come out of them after the fact, once somebody's onboarded, they're leveraging a platform. And for me, I don't care which platform it is. What I care about is, were you able to identify, select, and implement a platform with somebody that's going to back your play? They're actually going to be there for you, give you guidance. And then are you then going to come back and see that you achieved that future state that you were after. And that is really what it's all about, that full circle type of stuff. So there's a lot we can continue to talk about, and I think you and I already talked about doing some future episodes, but one of the things that I always want to make sure people know about is how they can get in touch with you if they want to connect and continue a conversation, pick your brain on a scenario that they're dealing with, anything like that. What is the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, I love it. So, I'm on LinkedIn constantly, and I'm trying to grow our presence there always. So, if you're ever on LinkedIn, Chris Palumbo at Llumin, reach out to me anytime. On our website, llumin.com, that's LLUMIN.com. There's a contact page right up there. Fill that out, and we'll reach out to you and have a conversation with you, and really kind of have more of a conversation about what you're looking to achieve. What do you need in a CMMS program? And then always, email Chris at Llumin.com. That's Chris at LLUMIN.com, which is, by the way, the shortest email I've ever had professionally, which I think is the best thing ever. So really simple. But, those are like the three best ways to be in touch.
That's excellent. So I encourage everyone to reach out to Chris if you have a question, an idea, anything like that around CMMS. And we've had a couple of great conversations. I'm going to put some of this contact information in the episode for the video version so that people can actually see it. And I really enjoyed this conversation today, Chris. We're going to do it again in the future, but I want to thank you for being on CMMS Radio and trying to help people understand some of the things in the CMMS world that can benefit them.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm glad to be part of it. Like I said, I saw CMMS Radio, and I looked at some of the stuff you've been doing, and I think this is just such a great tool for people who are looking to purchase a CMMS program. So awesome job on you too.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Chris. Until next time, have a great day.
Take care.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.